you basically start with Jason. Jason is the only character that appears in all 5 plays. Of the major characters, Jason's in all 5. Acastus and his father Peleus. Acastus is in the first 3. Acastus is the villain in the Golden Fleece tale, basically. Peleus, and what I did, I made Peleus the good king, and I made Jason and his father the bad kings. I switched that around because it makes more sense.
Yeah.
Medea appears in at the end of play 2. She's in 3 and 4, and she appears as a silent ghost in 5. Heracles is in 1 and 2, and then as he's a ghost in 5. Theseus is in 1, 2, and 3, and then in 5 he's a ghost. So of the major characters, there's only Jason that's in all of them, and he's sometimes arguably not the main character. There are interesting developments of other characters, but I started with the basic myth that he was taken away after Peleus took over. But instead of the old myth where Peleus usurps the good king Aeetes, it's Peleus who's taking over. He's the man of the people, a king of the people who's beloved because Aeetes, not Aeetes, I'm sorry, Aeson or Aeson is Jason's father, and he's the bad king. And so Jason comes back, and there's the idea of the man with one sandal, and this is how they know. Hera, I believe, tells Peleus that his reign will end when the man with one sandal comes. We see that at the beginning. Acastus befriends Jason, but he's working an angle, and Acastus is even working an angle against his father, which is a good thing that we don't have in the original. Is that Acastus is sent onto the Argo to be Peleus's eyes and ears without Jason knowing it. He doesn't know the connection. But here, Acastus is working his own angles. He wants to basically usurp his father, we find out in later plays. So by doing these little tweaks to the characters and their relations and how they do that, I think you get a much more natural flow. Because throughout this plays, you've got scheming dads. You've got Peleus, who's the best of them. You've got Aeetes, who's the father of Medea. And you got Aeson, who's the father of Jason. And they're all at some point trying to pull strings. Jason himself becomes a bad king and a bad father to his own children by the end. So
this is a theme you've kind of explored in other plays as well, sort of the lineage and sort of sons turning into their fathers, as it were, in the Khan plays. But as Hera's an interesting one too. I mean, even in the original myth, it's not often that we see Hera displayed as a kind of a virtue, as a good character. Often she's a really angry bitch, and but in this one she's the patron of the heroes. Although one could say that this is only because she has an animus. She wants to right a wrong that she feels has been done to her. But she appears in all the plays as well, I believe.
Okay. Jason, I should have said of the mortals. Hera and Zeus appear in all the plays too, but sometimes they have whole scenes where they talk. In one, I think in the 4th play or maybe the last play, they only have a brief interaction.
She's still a quite interesting character, like Hera, as you've written her. I think a lot of the scenes between Hera and Jason are probably my favorite of the cycle, and I think the scenes between Hera and Zeus are interesting, but I think some of the most interesting philosophical conversations, as it were, play out between Jason and Hera, which have to do with, I suppose, all the things that we've been alluding to, the idea of predestination and heroism. And I suppose even the nature of myth, what the fuck is the point of myths and their retelling?
Well, Jason starts in the first play. He's doubting everything because he knows, he's been told, presumably off stage before the play begins, he knows that he's going to end up dying on the Argo when a piece of the mast, a rotted piece of wood, falls on him and kills him. So it's one of those things. Well, what should I? Okay, I'm going to become famous as an adventurer. I'm going to become a king. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. But at the end, I'm still going to die a very ignominious death. And, he, in a sense, he's jealous to a certain degree of both Theseus, who later becomes an Argonaut. And in the Argonautica, I don't think Theseus is part of the Argos there, but I put him in because in other tales he is. It's just like with King Arthur, there are many different versions of whatnot. So I took the ones that are
Yeah.
the best. So I put Theseus there because here then you have the three greatest heroes before the Trojan War. You know, you have Theseus, Heracles, and Jason all on the same ship. And Jason basically becomes the captain because he doesn't get famous until afterwards, until he brings back the Golden Fleece.
Mm.
You know, basically he's in charge of the two. You know, it's sort of like if this was a movie, you have some schlemiel as the main hero of the movie, and meanwhile you've got Brad Pitt and George Clooney as Theseus
Yeah.
and Heracles,
It's the golden age of heroes, isn't it?
yeah.
That's an interesting thing too, like about the classical period. This whole idea of the golden age. I mean, it's a fairly recent thing that we have this idea of historical locomotion, as it were. That things are getting better, whereas in the classical world, it was this sense that all the great absolutely titanic heroic stuff had already come before, and that things actually might be getting worse.